Breaking news, sources telling CNN that Attorney General Jeff Sessions threatened to resign. I want to bring in now CNN contributor John Dean, the former White House counsel to President Nixon, who's the author of Conservatives Without Conscience. I'm going to get to the breaking news, but I think you can relate to this probably more than anyone because you had to deal with Watergate. So at this point in time, when you were about to testify, correct? What
Right.
were you were 2 days away, or a day and a half away, whatever it is. What were you doing? What were you thinking?
I was taking a last-minute run through my prepared statement because I had a lengthy statement I thought I was going to have to summarize for the Senate, and was trying to make sure I was familiar with it. As it turned out, I had to read the entire 60,000 words from start to finish, which took about 5 hours. I did it in a monotone just to save my voice, because I had no idea. Had I known, I would have had a much shorter statement.
And what do you think the other is? Because tomorrow there are some who are testifying, and then on Thursday. So what do you think they're doing? Are they nervous?
I don't think they're nervous. They're all pretty experienced. I happen to have been experienced in testifying on Capitol Hill. I'd been a committee counsel, so I was in a very familiar form. And I think all the people are coming up in the Senate hearing both tomorrow, and Comey and others know their way around the Hill, so I think they'll be quite comfortable.
How do you think Comey's feeling specifically?
Hard to tell. I think he's trying to sort out some of the nuance of what's going on. We're getting kind of interesting signals out of him that he doesn't want to obviously be accusatory. He wants to be fair in his testimony. I think your guests tonight have made a good point that it's going to be his word against Trump's on some, and I think most people are going to believe Comey. He has no motive to lie about any of this.
So I've heard that the less he says, right, the worse it is for the president, regardless of what you hear from the president's supporters. The less he says, because that means he can't talk about it. Is that correct? Do you agree with that?
Yes, I actually have been thinking about that. I didn't know others were saying that. I've been thinking about that very thing, that the brevity of his statement will relate to the seriousness of what he's not saying, because he's obviously been on this for many, many months, and he is intimately familiar with the investigation personally. He was heading it, so he could probably hold forth at some length. And what he's not sharing is what he's probably realizes as a former prosecutor he shouldn't share, because they're live proceedings. So
you shouldn't read into him not making a judgment on whether it's obstruction or collusion or any of that, because that's not what he's there for.
I think he's going to be a fact witness. Actually, that's what I tried to do. I did not speculate about anything, excepting one thing, Don. I did happen to speculate I may have been recorded, and that turned out to be one of the most important speculations I'd ever make in my life.
I would say so. So let's get to I have a laundry list of news that I want to talk to you about. Can we do that now? Because I want to talk about the Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Sources say that the president's anger at the Attorney General is growing, and that the two have had a series of heated exchanges over the last several weeks. Started with Sessions' recusal from the Russia probe. The president didn't want a special counsel. But isn't FBI Director James Comey's firing what really led to that, and it wasn't necessarily Sessions' fault?
Yeah, I think that's true. It was a tumbling cascade of events. But, you know, just institutionally, Don, there's always been a strain between attorneys general and White House. Sometimes an attorney general is very close to a president going in, and by the time they finish, that relationship has become frayed. We saw it with Nixon and his attorney general, John Mitchell, who didn't want the job. But within time, that became a very difficult relationship. So White Houses have a tendency to really test friendships and relationships.
So a Justice Department spokeswoman says that Sessions isn't stepping down, but we also hear from sources that frustration has gone both ways, with the Justice Department upset with the president's tweets, that those tweets have caused problems for Sessions and the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein.
I'm sure they have, and they're the people who have to go to court and make a case, and they present evidence that the travel ban is not in fact a ban, and the president comes out 24 hours later and undercuts exactly what they've represented to the court. That makes it very difficult to proceed. So I can understand their frustration.
We don't have to play the soundbite, but Sean Spicer today repeatedly declined to answer if the president has confidence in the attorney general. What do you make of that? Is that a simple yes or no question?
That's a very Washington press secretary type test that the media makes of press secretaries on a regular basis. When they see somebody who's having a difficult relationship with the president, they ask, do you or do you not have confidence still in the person? I'm not sure how much it means. We saw, for example, with Michael Flynn, how quickly he was after an expression of confidence. So that changes from day to day and often hour to hour.
Let me see what I want to ask you about, because I have a couple of quotes here. Let's talk about the president saying that he was told 3 times, right, that he wasn't under investigation. He said, he read the president wrote in a letter to Comey on May 9th. The president wrote in this letter, said, while I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation, I nevertheless concur the judgment of the Department of Justice that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau. So if he didn't tell him this, right, if he didn't tell the president that, how big a deal is that?
Well, it'd be a rather significant lie, and he'd be caught in it. I have trouble understanding how you'd misinterpret on 3 occasions whether you were under investigation or not. I think Mr. Comey is very clear-spoken, and the president would know exactly what his relationship was vis-a-vis the investigation. So we'll get this all sorted out on Thursday. That's a for sure question, and it'll be explored in depth.
I want you to get this in. I want to get this in real quick, and this is from the New York Times. Michael Schmidt says basically that Comey asked Jeff Sessions not to leave the room because he didn't want to be left alone in the room with the president because he was that concerned about their meetings and their discussions. What do you think of that?
Well, my first reaction to that was, I wonder who leaked that. I wonder if that was somebody on the Sessions side or somebody on the Comey side.
Right.
And it strikes me as being the Sessions side, actually. And so there's a real ability to cooperate and sort this out.
Yeah. I love our conversations. John Dean, thanks for coming on as usual. I'll see you soon.